No! This is an injustice that needs to be put right. I'm so good. No one's asked me about this. I do not say, I burn for you. It's not my line. That's Daphne's line. Hey, my name's Regé-Jean Page.
I'm Sheree Folkson.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Dynevor.
Hey, I'm Kris Bowers.
I'm the director of episode 5 of Bridgerton.
I'm the composer for Bridgerton.
I play Daphne Bridgerton, and this is Making a Scene.
I do hope everything is to your liking. Should you require anything else at all, please let me know.
I remember reading it and thinking, wow, this is the big one, because not only is it the performances, the journey that we go from fighting and not being friends to the total other end of the spectrum. I knew it was going to be a ride. We shot this scene end of summer, so it was a beautiful day and it was a beautiful location. It's a really old, rundown like house in the middle of nowhere.
I suppose you could say that in a way they're in no man's land. It's not his house, it's not her house. So they are suspended at that moment. So it seems like a very good place for it all to come together when they're on kind of neutral territory.
They put a fire in and we were like boiling hot. And it was a long day. We were there all day shooting that scene. We were both quite emotional. It was a pretty intense scene to shoot.
When you're directing your 2 episodes, you know the story and how it goes, but you're just thinking about what you've got to direct and the story you have to tell. And I was aware that this was a very key moment in their relationship. It's when it all switches and changes. But as a director, you're also aware from a very practical point of view that I had a very long scene with a lot of dialogue. And so I'm also thinking, how can we make sure that this keeps its momentum?
I've spent the last 3 days wanting to be alone with you, wanting to talk to you, wanting to know.
Bridgerton is very dialogue heavy in a great way. And God, the writing is just, it's so brilliant. And I think the gift of Bridgerton really was in the writing.
You would prefer to stay in your separate room and endure a wordless dinner together on our wedding night.
That is not what I would prefer.
I think when I first read this scene, thinking about where each of them are really being primarily with Daphne from her point of view, there's a string ostinato that kind of continues throughout. That's built off of Daphne's theme. And harmonically and musically, this is now getting much closer to what their theme is going to be. And it has this warm and romantic tone to it, but also a little bit of maybe mystery or danger.
When I heard the soundtrack for the first time, I cried. I was just like, oh my God, it was more than I imagined it to be. And I was so thrilled. So the music makes such a huge impact on letting the audience feel all the feels.
It's so intense. Phoebe and I were both actually fairly well prepared, and it plays a lot because it plays off each other like that tennis match.
Why do you think I followed you into that garden?
Why do you think I went into that garden?
The 2 scenes before were the pair of them pacing up and down in their rooms. I thought that just led you into the sense of these couple who are both utterly frustrated. They both are crazy about the other person, but they think that the other person feels that they trapped them into marriage and it's a disaster. That's what they both feel. And of course, it's quite the opposite. They are both crazy about each other.
The audience know that she's really frustrated and in love, but Simon thinks that she's annoyed and hates him. It's probably a lot of sexual frustration going on at the beginning of that scene, like the huffs and the puffs, and those like moments of, why don't you get it? It's like so frustrating for them both.
That is what happens.
When one is angry.
When one burns for someone who does not feel the same. I do not say, I burn for you. It's not my line. That's Daphne's line. And so it's never this kind of, I burn for you thing. In the Batman voice. It's not a thing. It's the Mandela effect. Everyone clearly was feeling very burnt for, which I'll take as a compliment.
I burn for you.
you have no idea what lines people are going to care about. And that was surprising to me. It wasn't like I saw I Burn For You in the script and was like, this is going to be what people talk about. So I think the key to dialogue like that is just to make it as organic and as real as possible. And I think there's no other way to play saying a line like that than to make it an inward feeling.
From the mornings you ease, to the evenings you quiet, to the dreams you inhabit.
Because Simon's going through a lot in that scene. Like, Simon's going in and out of his own self-loathing, in and out of, am I ready to kind of dive off this cliff and declare my feelings in the most hilariously male, unnecessarily aggressive way possible. That came out the way it did because of that internal struggle that Simon was going through, because he didn't want to say it and kind of almost had to beat himself up to say it.
I am yours, Daphne.
Not only did we have to get through the performance, but then we had to get through the intimate scene.
It's such a beautiful moment, isn't it? When two people who, for hours we've been watching them falling in love, but not being able to communicate properly to each other. And this is the moment when finally they do come together. I wanted a sort of sexy song for when he starts to disrobe her. I found this wonderful song by Celeste called Isn't It Strange? But the truth is, it is actually that the lyrics are about a breakup.
Do you want me to stop?
They had the idea of having me do a cover of it and having us do something that would be a Bridgerton interpretation of that. It's a pretty emotional moment watching that happen, and I feel like that piece of music captures it so much better than any piece of score could. I'm just thankful that Hilary Smith, who's the cellist that plays on it, we just transcribed that melody and gave it to her. So it's really her acting as that vocalist and bringing that emotion. I think that choosing this song really was such a weight lifted off of my shoulders, to be honest, because I feel like, the song just captured it so perfectly.
It's so much more sexy to watch the anticipation of sex than actual sex. So I just wanted to drag out as long as I could. Then in those days, with having to undo the laces and the buttons, it delays it. It's that delayed pleasure.
The wardrobe is funny because it was a big part of those intimate scenes, because we knew that we somehow romantically had to take off the corsets, which would in real life take about 5 minutes to undo and isn't the sexiest thing ever.
A trade secret was that in that room, we got up to the moment when their clothes came off, but when you cut to them going to the bed, that's months later in a studio.
We have to figure out a way of getting to the bed that looks good for the camera, as opposed to, one of us sort of walking over to the bed and sitting on it. I mean, it seems so silly, but all of these tiny things come into play to make the scene what it is.
Like we talked about.
I watched this movie and it's called Broken Embraces, directed by Pedro Almodovar. And there's a wonderful scene in it where the couple make love. And when they were making love, I think they were on the floor actually, they just looked into each other's eyes all the time. And I thought that's a fantastic way of doing a sex scene, because it just transcended it and made you understand the connection. That was what I took the idea from.
There was a lot of talk about this being Daphne's first sexual experience. This intimate scene, more than any other scene, we rehearsed a lot because the balance was making sure that Daphne was 100% into it and wanted it. And it was, very much consensual. but also that this was Daphne's first time. So she doesn't know what she's doing. So therefore, Simon very much has to lead the way. The choreography that went into that, and we talked a lot to Kris and a lot to Lizzie Talbot, our amazing intimacy coordinator, just about finding the right balance of Daphne having some sort of control, even though she has no idea what she's doing.
They are both fantastic actors, may I say, who completely understood the scene, where their characters were, what they wanted, what they were doing.
I just feel so lucky that I'm coming up in a time where intimacy coordinators are a thing, and it was everyone coming together and making everyone feel comfortable and safe. And it really was exciting to be able to watch those scenes and be like, oh my God, it looks real, and it looks like we have so much chemistry. And, you know, me and Regé had such a great professional relationship and worked so hard on making everyone feel like we were really in love. And I think we managed to do that. So that's good.
I feel wonderful.